Now, here's the question, kind of the economic or market question. If he loses, how would the stock market react? What might it mean for the economy? We talked legal earlier. That side now, Doug Flynn joins us as he does multiple times each week. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think you and I talked about how, sometimes the impact of tariffs one way or another can be greatly exaggerated, right? People say, oh, it's a disaster, or the opposite. The Trump comes on and says it's the best, greatest thing since sliced bread, and neither is probably true. But what would, if he loses here, maybe he finds a way around it, I don't know, but is there a market or economic impact?
A little bit. You could see it today with some of the stocks like Caterpillar and some of the auto stocks and the fact that they've popped on the anticipation that maybe those tariffs won't be there. But the interesting thing to me is that, for all these companies who said they have to raise prices because of tariffs, and the Fed saying we can't lower interest rates as much because of tariffs. If you remove that, then I think it's going to be really good. I think it'll be prices will come down from all those companies, and the Fed now can remove that excuse and lower rates, and that's all going to be good for people. Of course, the trade-off is that we don't get that $300 billion a year that the federal government is collecting for the next 10 years. That
right.
$3 trillion number that's going to go that. But as we've spoken about many times, I don't know how much anybody really cares about the deficit, because that's where that ends up. So perhaps, you throw them out and people save money and inflation goes down and that's a win. Or maybe they're not quite as extreme as everyone said, and some of those people are exaggerating. Yeah,
well, including the president when it comes to the deficit, although he uses this as a reason. But, so you'd have to have a position on tariffs first. I think the reasonable position on tariffs, like an economic position, but you correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're marginally negative, it's turned out to be not extreme, but certainly not marginally positive. Like you're not going to make an argument. Right. I know the president does, but there's nothing to it, in my view, to say, well, the stock market's up because of tariffs. Stock market's up in spite of tariffs. It's up because of technology and AI and all the rest. So if it's marginally negative, to your point, you get rid of them, it's marginally positive.
That's right, and that's how the theory goes. I mean, we were told that tariffs are the worst thing ever, and both the last presidency and this one, that didn't really pan out. They were, as you say, slightly negative, and so maybe we get slightly positive to the other side if they go away. But there's always, for every input, there's an output, and that output is they don't collect all that money, and it shows up in some other ways in terms of deficits.
Right. So but just like the money that we would have lost, or just like the impact wasn't that great there, that impact's not that great on the deficit that we have. I mean, it sounds like a lot of money. I have $300 billion, but like not in this country.
No, not at all.
It's not really making a dent.
Amount.
It's a really marginal amount. Okay, let me talk about one other economic issue before I let you go here, and that is housing. We've had a lot of different ways of talking about housing. Here's a new one. New numbers came out showing that the typical home buyer, first-time home buyer, is a lot older than ever before. There you go. So 40 years the average age to the first-time home buyer. Says what about where we are?
Yeah, it says how much of an affordability crisis we still have. That's the highest it's ever been. In 2021, the median age was 33, and in the early 80s it was age 29. And where that comes from is that the younger people have such a small percentage of all the new homes. It's the lowest percentage ever. So you have really sort of a bifurcation of markets out there. You have older people who are sitting on a ton of equity because the houses are worth so much that when they sell, they can pay cash for another house or put a large down payment down. And then you have the younger people who, because of multiple issues, undersupply, the high costs, and then still we have relatively high interest rates for mortgages, they can't afford it. And so they've become a smaller percentage, and that's where the bifurcation has really happened there.
Okay.
And the overall age for all home buyers is pushing 60. That was just first-time home buyers, but overall it's 60 because most of the activity is happening on the older side as people sell their homes with all this equity and just pay cash for another house. So that's what you're seeing there in the market, and we need to fix it for the younger people.
Last thing as a commentary on where we are, real quick. McDonald's, numbers came out, sales were up like 2.4%. Its stores open at least a year. Okay, got it. But low-income customers have been missing at McDonald's, and they're rolling out these lower-cost meal bundles and that kind of thing, limited-time offers. What is that telling us about our economy?
Yeah, about 40% of the Gen Z and millennials have said that they've actually eaten out less as a result because they need the money to pay for other things. Some of that might be tariff and inflation related. They have to put that money elsewhere, so they can't eat out as much. But this is not really just only an inflation and tariff issue. It's also a jobs picture. You don't have the wage growth that you used to have. That's really slowed down. And so, you know, they have started student loan repayments back up. The unemployment rate is more than 2 times the national average, and you know that all mixes in to say some of these restaurants, it was Chipotle last week, and some other ones are coming out with the same thing. The wealthier people can afford it, the younger people and less income cannot.
May have seen some of that in the election last night. Doug, thank you. Doug Flynn with us, closing bell time in New York.